What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Crypto Bobby. I hope you are having a great day, great night, wherever you are watching or listening in from. And welcome to another episode on the podcast. And we have a recurring guest here. This is, I think, third time's a charm. First time with Travis Kling, second time with Jake Blish, and now we got you one-on-one here. So
I'm here solo in the booth.
yeah, solo in the booth, obviously, aka my living room. But wanted to pop into just a couple of the topics that are happening, going down this week, to talk to you a little bit just on your thoughts about some of the Tether, some of the Bitfinex stuff. You've had some hot takes on Twitter recently, so we can dive into some of them. But I mean, I think the big thing, and I've done this in the past, it's the shitcoin of the week, something I like to touch on every single week. And I'll give you my shitcoin of the week right now, and it's actually something I have a long position in, because why not? Like, life's too short to not buy shitcoins on partnership news. And in that case, my shitcoin of the week is IOTA, because it might not work, but they have a partnership with Jaguar, and my goal in life is to trigger people, trigger bag holders, and now I am a bag holder of IOTA. But hey, that's the shitcoin of the week on my end.
You're here with the club now with IOTA. You know what's better than one tangle is two tangles that don't communicate with each other whatsoever. And that was like their whole like spin was always IoT, like cars, like the future of everything. And I want to just know like who at Jaguar was like, oh, this is a great idea. Like they probably had like a mandate. I think we were talking about at some point like here's your mandate for the year, like do all these new experimental things, and then like blockchain, and then someone read the IOTA paper and was like, all right, that's it. They're focused on us, the car manufacturers. And I kind of thought about it for the last couple seconds, where I thought IOTA would be like a great like to double down on for shitcoin of the week. But I'm also thinking Tron is up there as well, because as soon as the Bitfinex...
Tron is a sure bet for shitcoin of the week every week. Tron's a write-in.
One of my favorites, I think back in the day, the ICO drops guys used to have like good Tron, bad Tron, like every week on what they were doing. But like right after the Bitfinex news hit, they just doubled down on the whole Tron is now having Tether on their blockchain. Like it just didn't faze them at all that this was like, hey, maybe we should like hold for a second or see what's going on. They were like, no, we got Tether now. Like we figured out like the killer product fit for the Tron blockchain. You know, it's not Omni anymore that literally only exists to host Tether. Now we're just going to do Tron, have it on Tron now as well.
Two totally legit companies partnering in a totally legit manner for the benefit of the greater crypto and blockchain community. I mean, Tron and Tether is a match made in heaven if you look at it that way.
And I just hope everyone also recalls back, now that we're talking about Jaguar and IOTA, that people recall when they partnered with Microsoft. And
you mean they bought a Microsoft 365 membership and published it across 45 different blogs, and then I got yelled at from some IOTA exec because I made fun of them for that, and they were not happy about it.
Didn't they just become like a thing on Azure? Like even Stratus did that as well. Like they were just kind of like a deployable thing. But like I think afterwards, did Microsoft like kind of pedal back and was like, wait, this isn't really like a thing? I don't recall if that was the
well, to the point also of shitcoin of the week, because I mean it's too easy every week with Tron. But I don't know if you saw this, but there was, I guess Justin's son got something sent from him from like Liverpool, and I saw CZ got it the same
video,
exact thing.
The
like,
video in the mail.
Yeah, the video in the mail, and he's like, Liverpool partnership coming soon, and there was an article like, I think it was from Breaker Mag or somewhere else, like 6 hours later, like Liverpool rep says there is no partnership.
Like the whole thing's like addressed to be like, yeah, we're going to partner together if you pay us enough. I think it was Jesse Powell from Kraken who came on Twitter and was like, yeah, we get the same thing all the time. They're just asking for money. Like, and then CZ did the tweet too, where he's like, oh, look, at least he framed it where he was like, we just got this in the mail. Like, it's this cool thing from Liverpool. Like, check it out. Justin's son was immediately like, had to do his marketing thing where it's like, all right, we're already partnered with Liverpool. Everyone's freaking out in the comments. Including probably the guy who got those 2 Teslas. Whether or not he actually did, who knows?
That was a great chill game. That was
when your own community turns against you, you have to do something. Like even the Tron bag holders were just like, this is not good. Like Lord and Savior Justin Sun is not budging on this. We need to get him to budge and give that guy a Tesla. Yeah. He did the whole My Family thing too. I didn't realize that was ever going to be a thing in real life. Me familia with like the guy on the couch with his like two sons, like two children, like, sir, a Tesla. These young children will never be able to
have the joy of riding in Elon Musk's luxury automobile in their entire life, thanks to you, Justin Sun.
Like 2017, 2018, I knew exactly, like, you'd see that in every channel. You'd see, like, it was either serious or someone just joking about it. Now in real life, you have an example of this, like, documented with a photo of him and his family saying, like, we'll never be able to live again without this Tesla. And I guess he came through.
He got the Tesla, so shit, the guy played his cards right. I mean, that was definitely the move. And I mean, even to that point too, I mean, get on the car talk, getting back to the original shitcoin of the week, IOTA. And again, for the IOTA bag holders that are mad at me, I also bought a truckload on a market buy. So whatever. But
are they also partnering with a truck company too?
I mean, hopefully, yes, because I'm probably gonna need a truck to like clear me out from once it actually drops, because I'm an idiot for buying IOTA. But yeah, the team at Jaguar is probably some like innovation lab team at Jaguar that gets paid like, you know, multiple six figures every year to sit in like a cubicle room with a couple like bouncy balls and
big influencers.
Yes. It'd be like, what should we do with blockchain and buzzwords this week? Oh, this Tangle thing. It's let's try it out.
It's pretty tangled. It's great. It's got a tangle. It's really doing well, and the community really loves it.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about with that. And then looking at like something that I've done in the past, just looking at hot takes on crypto Twitter. You had one that I think angered a few people in Ethereum land, and I think it's also kind of funny because you're pretty heavy into Ethereum land personally. But you talked about this new metric, this kind of narrative that is money locked in DeFi or decentralized finance, and how it's a silly metric. You want to expand upon that further? You know, kind of justify yourself, maybe fight back against the critics a little bit here.
I mean, sure. Like, the thing is, the money locked in DeFi thing became the shiny big number we could all point to and like say, hey, look how much is locked in here. And it's like, okay, great. Like, that could even be like one person with a huge amount in it. Like, where's the meaning other than big number on screen? And also, it was giving people an excuse to compare systems that were just apples and oranges. Like, you know, why would someone compare like lending to payment channels?
Yeah,
like two totally different like units. And this one shiny number was like the thing that was like, yeah, look, it's a bigger number, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And then I angered a lot in the Ethereum community. And don't get me wrong, I'm trying to find like the shiny light in DeFi. Like I'm trying here, and you know, a lot of people came back with some good rebuttals. Someone also came back and said, you know, it started a discussion, which was good, that said we need to just couple that large shiny number with also meaningful things. So someone was talking about like Lightning. So like, you know, number of open channels, how much is being passed between channels, with that larger number up top, just adding to the amount of data that we have on these things. Lending, okay, kind of gets a pass for money locked in it and how much is moving around. But like just using it as the end all to be all thing is what kind of got me was, you know, I got a little confused. I was a little annoyed by it because it kept coming up in conversation.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite joke out of all this is like, if it's just purely money locked in DeFi, I think it was Nick Carter too who mentioned multi-sigs, like every multi-sig should be it, but like parity, because that money's not going anywhere. Technically, it's locked in DeFi
by DevOps.
By DevOps 199. Like if it's been touched by the grace of DevOps, that it's just a beautiful thing.
Contract kill.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can't withdraw this anymore. But that should also be included in locked in DeFi, because technically it's locked in DeFi. If DeFi is the narrative that the Ethereum, you know, group is going for, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, again, not against DeFi, but if that's a narrative, we got to be like a little more granular with what we talk about. Yeah.
I'm big on. I'm a fairly big advocate of DeFi. I like it. I think it's really interesting. I love trying out like the different products and everything. I mean, BitMEX's insurance fund might be second place. I'm totally kidding. I posted that as a joke, and somebody was like, I think we have different, I think it was CyberHokey on Twitter. I posted that, and they're like, I think we have different definitions of DeFi, and I was completely kidding. But it would be in second place behind MakerDAO, I believe, because it's like close to $100+ million right now in the BitMEX insurance fund.
BitMEX insurance fund. Yeah, and the thing is, too, like you said earlier, you've played around with these things. Is anyone playing around with these? Is like your mother playing around with DeFi right now?
Oh, no.
And the thing is, I think a lot of it is also, I think it's Jacob who told me this analogy, and I still love it, that we're all kind of in the same bathtub, just like pushing the same bathwater back and forth. That DeFi has just become like the enthusiast game, that there's no real like retail that has a need for this right now. This kind of censorship resistant, this no central authority lending, borrowing slash, opening CDPs. It's just like, it's cool. You either have like Maker. It's going to be me and you opening smaller CDPs as enthusiasts, where it's like, I'm going to put like, $10 in this and get $1 in DAI for every $3 in Ethereum. Like, the logic is not there, or it's traders going level long.
Oh yeah.
And the DeFi liberating the masses, and the problem is the narrative is not caught up to the technology, where when DeFi is sold, it's this, we're going to liberate the masses, we're going to bank the unbanked, world hunger is going to be over, blockchain is going to solve cancer. But when it's just kind of these use cases, we have to be very honest with where we're at. It's like it's still an enthusiast game. We're in the bathtub, splashing the water back and forth, the same water, or like we're in the same boat, oaring on one side. So we're going in a circle till the next wave comes over. And that's kind of what's the aggravating part. It's not so much like money locked in DeFi as the ultimate metric is annoying, but I think it's the marketing catching up to the reality of the technology.
Yeah.
Like even DAI right now, I'm a big fan of the MakerDAO project, what they're doing, and I think DAI is crazy, like how they have everything put together, but like they're still even having issues with stability. Like that's why I had to keep raising the stability fee so people would stop opening CDPs and start closing.
And we can talk about that. We could dive into that maybe a little bit more, because I think that's something that's really interesting, because people have pointed to the fact that DAI remained pretty damn stable from basically ETH at $1,000 to $80 or whatever it bottomed out at. And pointed out, like, this is incredible. This is, this proves that DAI is legit and it can remain stable. But where DAI has now had issues with stability has been this kind of this recovery off the hopeful bottom of the crypto markets, where ETH has gone from $80 to $150 or so, where it's at right now. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but like for me, I look at it, and it kind of seems like the MakerDAO CDP system, to me, works very, very well in a bear market where one is incentivized to actually hold to hold DAI and to not be opening CDPs at all, or to be constantly collateralizing them and over collateralizing them, because you're going to get liquidated if you don't. Whereas, like, for somebody like myself, I opened up, I think, 2 CDPs. I have one at like $105 and the other one at like $125. Right now, I'm still I immediately took the DAI. I moved that to ETH. So I basically just went level long on it. And where we're at right now, it doesn't make sense for me to close my CDP, even though I opened it at 0.5% stability fee, and now it's up to like 15%. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, and that follows you too, right? Like now you're not like grandfathered. Yeah,
no.
When you close, you actually have to.
I thought you were grandfathered initially. I was like, oh.
Yeah, during the 7.5 raise, I remember that's when. I think right before 7.5 kicked in, I think 3 million-ish DAI, it was all closed up and it started to regain traction. But then again, can't someone like essentially bring the system down if someone with enough money? I mean, I guess for all these systems, like you get like a Bezos with a couple $1 billion, you just literally drop a bomb on these systems and just knock them out. Like if you're just opening CDPs for the sake of doing it and you have the money to just eat it, like you could just throw off the stability of this entire system, which again routes back to like marketing as hard as you can when the tech is just not ready yet.
Yeah.
Like solving all these problems and it's just not there yet. And again, I'm just glad the conversation when the Bitfinex thing happened in Tether, the conversation went less from like, the whole DAI stability / how do we bring the system back to, look, it's auditable. And I thought that was kind of the more meaningful take on it. Was when the whole Tether situation was going on, the MakerDAO / DAI community was like, hey, look, it's all here.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing hiding, like as we saw with these kind of centralized services. Or Tether operates kind of in that gray area of stable coins, which is why it's been so weirdly, it's like a mythical creature in the space. It's its own thing.
So what's your take? It's been covered pretty much. I mean, it's been beaten over the head, but do you have any, I guess, interesting takes per se on what's been happening with Bitfinex or Tether? Do you has anybody said anything that you agree with, or if you have like kind of formulated any of your own opinions on it?
At the end of the day, like in terms of stablecoin land, I'm still gonna pony up and be like the really regulated ones are where kind of my safe haven is. If I use stablecoins, where like USDC, Paxos, TrueUSD, all those guys. With Tether, it's always been a game of this has been fun to watch. I've kind of always stayed on the sidelines of it. I've never hedged in Tether in particular, but I think it's a very dangerous thing if Tether were to fail.
Yeah.
And Bitfinex as well kind of get caught up in that. And just to reiterate the story, was it like the case where Bitfinex had liabilities and then Tether was used to cover it at the time, and that's when they kind of changed it on the Tether website from like one-to-one to like a basket of different things, not just one-to-one, but like, basically admitting to some kind of like fractional reserve in that case.
Yeah, essentially taking out a loan, and then I believe the source of that, the source of the loan is no longer the payment processor that they utilize for it is not necessarily the most reliable of sorts, and that money is seized and secured, not lost. Yeah. It's seized and secured, so we're good.
With that company they were dealing with, was it like a South American company? I think was it also Panama?
Panama.
Yeah, exactly. That there's like two narratives going on where Bitfinex and someone else in a chat I mentioned, I forgot who it was. Like one of the chats on Telegram was like, yeah, Bitfinex usually doesn't respond that quickly to these kinds of things. Also, they also said like full stop in the like they're trying to be professional and they're like, oh, it's all here, full stop. And I was like, wait a second, like but why the intern write this?
That's been my least favorite phrase on the internet for a long time. But them putting that in an official press release, yes, it's like, which millennial 17-year-old marketing intern did you have that wrote a legal response to the New York Attorney General's office? You idiots.
And like the fact that got through, along with the quickness of the response, is like something is off. Something doesn't smell right. Like I'm just gonna kind of still be on the sidelines enjoying, having a little bit of popcorn, but like it's a little nerve-wracking. Because Bitfinex was like 2017, 2018, still had a huge amount of users, huge amount of people trading on it. 2016 they had that hack, but like kind of recovered nicely. They had the equity thing that they did. But like if that were to go, that's devastating. The theory that I had was like, Tether, if Tether failed, like, people would be going into Bitcoin, but like just market sentiment can literally override that.
Oh, yeah.
If people are like, holy crap, this exchange just demolished because of what happened, I hope not. That could override the whole like narrative of anything being good for Bitcoin coming from this.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the unfortunate things about it too. It's like, even if you're somebody that does not use Bitfinex at all, even if you're somebody that uses maybe an exchange that has Tether on it, but like, if you use Binance or use something else and you use either like actual US dollar, or you use Paxos or GUSD or TUSD or one of the 50 billion other stable coins out there that are actually like audited stable coins now, you're still probably going to get wrecked if all this stuff goes down, and there's not all that much you can do about it other than potentially sitting in a stable coin for quite some time, or sitting in fiat and kind of waiting it out. And it's been to the point where it's like, I feel like this has kind of like, this type of news has happened so many times before, and I feel like people kind of continually get tired of it, and then they're like, well, nothing's happened in the past. Is anything actually going to happen in the future? But I've always kind of thought, like, in crypto, it's just like anytime there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly.
Like, it's something not good is happening here.
And some of the takes are getting worse. Like I think it was CZ on Twitter was like, oh, users are in charge of their balances, and I was like, wait, no, like that's liability for you, man. If something's wrong with Tether, that's huge liability for Binance, because Binance I think has like one of the highest balances.
Binance has the highest balance, and it was interesting too. So I think that was in response to Randy's tweet Randy put out a tweet on Twitter, obviously. And I think
tweet on Facebook.
Yeah, put out a tweet on Facebook. And they had about $80 million in Tether on their books, or just in their wallets. And that number 3 days later was, I think, 805. So it already dropped 75 mil in Tether. But one of the interesting theories, I was talking to somebody on Telegram about this, is that basically, if this is like in a really bad situation, Binance kind of bails Bitfinex and Tether out, or bails Tether out, because number one, their users will get absolutely screwed if everything bad happens with Tether. Anything bad happens with Tether, like, yes, it's not Binance, but like they might not be losing it, but it's their users, and I'm sure that's legal mess or just some. It's not good. But then also to that point too, it's kind of another opportunity for CZ to become
the hero.
Exactly.
Which is absolutely smart, because and now I'm seeing what you're saying. Like any exchange trading it, like let's say something happens to it, just essentially just becomes like it's a liability for all of them. And the smartest thing, like you're saying, is like a bailout, which would suck, but it could easily be spun.
Yeah.
And CZ becomes the hero in that case.
And there's nobody who's better at the spin zone than CZ. There's no one who's mastered the spin zone on crypto Twitter, in Twitter.
It could also be used to like promote the DEX too, where it's like everything's non-custodial. You don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Exactly.
It'll just kind of like feed into that narrative as well.
So as somebody who does a lot of research on different platforms, I think you've spent a lot of time looking at Ethereum, certain Ethereum competitors. What are your thoughts on getting to that point? Binance Chain, like it's been funny too. As somebody who is in a variety of kind of Ethereum Telegram groups, I've literally had like every day there's somebody like, hey, you need to move to Binance Chain. You need to move to Binance Chain. You need to move to Binance Chain. What is it? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I think I'm like not excited at all with Binance Chain. It's just it's pure marketing material. I think there's like node control too at Binance too. It's like I feel like Binance Chain is just going to be the safe haven for any payment token that was made. Like payment tokens being like kind of like, oh, we just have this kind of money for dog food. Like we have this token for dog food to like pay in dog food. We have this marketplace, and then because if the marketplace goes up, dog food token goes up as well. But the thing is, like, you don't need that on a blockchain at all. Like, let alone Ethereum for something like that. Like, it just should not be on it should not be a token on a blockchain.
Yeah,
it's much easier facilitated through like a central database and points or whatever it is. And then Binance Chain becomes this like, hey, we can move here, get the speed we need because we don't have to worry about censorship resistance for our dog food points. And then it all of a sudden became like a huge like market moving event. I think it was like Mithril that was the first token that was announced. I don't even know what Mithril does. I think Mithril's like another like payment token. And then just the price exploded like 70 to 75% just on the announcement of being on Binance Chain. And like the next day, a ton of other announcements and projects that use payment tokens are just like, yeah, we're on Binance Chain now. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
It was crazy diminishing returns though, because Mithril was the first one, and that thing pumped to the moon. I think it was, like you said, like 80%, something like that. I think there were a few afterwards that I saw. One pumped like 15% in like 15 minutes, and then like you literally had to zoom into a 5-minute candle to see where it was, because everything else you just saw one wick, and that was it.
And it just brought me back to the like everyone's like, yeah, we're in a bear market, things are being built, everything's like being rational again, and then I see this and I'm like, no, we're still here, like we're still on this absurd planet of like irrational exuberance.
Yeah.
Like, it's still, you're still going to have these absurd events where there's nothing meriting any of these kinds of movements. There's nothing revolutionary about the technology that's being used or why a certain company is doing something, but the market's just responding in this ridiculous way. Like it's just reminding me of like 2017, like flashbacks from like late 2017, early 2018.
It's really funny to watch, just like in general, and I think it's also like the trends evolve and the trends move so quickly in crypto as well. Like looking even at like the IEO crap that's happening.
You need these stories. You need these things to keep pushing the drama along. The thing is that the building is great. People are coming out with new technologies every day, but you still need that drama there. Like right before IEOs, we were kind of closing the Bitcoin SV chapter, the Crazy Craig and Calvin Ayre whole thing. Just moving on to IEOs is like,
watch it, lawsuits.
Listen, I never said whether or not Craig is Satoshi. And yeah, they've been on a roll, man. It's like watching like Dragon Ball Z sagas. Like you just keep getting these like little pockets of like insanity that just keep moving forward in these like, pockets of drama.
The crypto space is not to be gender specific here, but I do think that a lot of it is basically like soap operas for guys.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's like the drama TV show that like that nerdy guys enjoy. Like it's ridiculous how much drama and like idiotic stuff happens on crypto Twitter on a daily basis. And because
which is probably why it's all dudes.
Yeah, which is
oh man, this is stupid. I want to keep watching.
Which is why the industry is 90% guys right now, because a bunch of dudes yelling at each other on crypto Twitter arguing about who's Satoshi and
It's a measuring contest.
yes.
I'll leave it at that.
Yes. For I would say for better or for worse, but it's definitely for worse at this point in time. And the last time you were on, we talked a little bit about TCR Party, which is something you were working on. That was definitely pretty cool to watch that kind of go through like the motions of how you guys created it. But like, what has it taught you about token curated registries? Like what lessons have you and your team learned from that?
So with that, we learned a couple things. The first is we couldn't test anything economics wise, but interest and subjectivity. We did a bit of customer development, like interviews towards the end of it. And it was funny to see the same pattern of, I didn't know what the list was about, but I wanted to be on that list. Like it was a pure popularity contest. It was like, we had over 500 users, which was kind of cool. There's still people using it to this day as just like people still being voted on. I think Andrew Yang actually got onto the list. I voted against him, but I guess I got outvoted in the challenge period. So people are still kind of using it. It's still kind of stuck to the list of crypto people, because I guess even Andrew Yang like has his whole stance on like their digital currencies. So there's still a part being played there. But we learned that kind of building these, I wouldn't trust a TCR for huge, high stakes, like objective information. What I do like them is like these small curated pockets of information. So I think it was Tom from Delphi was saying like he pointed someone who was looking for like information in the crypto space to just the TCR bot that was retweeting everyone on the list. And I'm like, if that's kind of the end game, what happened here, that's fantastic. It's like it served its purpose. It's a registry of like 99 people talking about crypto that give enough signal rather than noise that someone's pointing someone else to that actual list, that it's done its job. But we also learned that even like when curating these lists, you have to set the tone or else it'll go off the rails. So the reason it was good that kind of we were obviously there first to kind of do the first couple nominations, because then people just essentially follow the trend. We honestly haven't been able to really develop any more on it because it was a bit of a cost sink for us. We're not selling TCR Party. There's no way to sell TCR Party. But it was fun to do because we learned about a lot about TCRs and how people act with TCRs, even without the economics component. And then it was fun to also see there was an Augur market that opened up for egging Calvin Ayre. So someone is like, hey, is Calvin Ayre going to get egged by this day? But the way the reporting worked was it wasn't the reporter who's just going to say yes or no. What's going to happen is if someone submits a video of it happening, a member of TCR Party has to submit a poll to Twitter and let people verify as to whether or not the video was staged. And then the reporter has to take that result and report that way. So essentially, the token curator registry became like the arbiter of the market, saying whether or not a video was falsified or not. But I thought that was kind of cool, and a really, for like hyper localized examples like that, like that's just going to happen in a time and a place. Like it's really tough to, like if I put a market out on you tripping on the sidewalk, like how would I know when that's going to happen? It's just such an isolated incident that it's tough for an outside reporter to get an accurate gauge on. So like using a group like that that's highly specialized, to be somewhat of a reporter on a market like that is interesting, but I think it's too isolated to like keep using. Like there's not going to be a lot of money. Like in a market like that, like someone tripping, like just random guy is not going to generate enough money on both sides as to whether or not it's going to happen. And it's such an event that could be like gamed / there's low interest. So there's not really a reason to have all these big reporting groups to just like verify something. But it was a fun thing to see someone did with TCR Party that I was like, oh, that's neat. Like
I just participated in my first Augur market, and I'm about to lose.
You may or may not have participated.
I may have. It was Pete Buttigieg. I don't know, Mayor Pete, the politician, whatever.
Yeah.
Will he have 1 million Twitter followers? And there was a market for it on Augur and Veil. And I was like, oh, this is like, I looked on Social Blade. I was tracking the numbers. It was the surefire win ever. And all of a sudden in the past like 3 days, he was like maybe 25,000 followers away, was getting like 8,000 followers a day, drops to 3,000 followers. And I'm like, just kissing my ETH goodbye. So there's I believe for this specific market, it's just on the day that it's on May 1st. Is he has to have 1 million Twitter followers, I think, on May 1st or by May 1st. But I was using Social Blade to track his followers, and I was like, this is easy money. This is like I'm printing Ethereum here. This is great. This is hashtag DeFi. And I'm just donating my Ethereum to the opposite side of the market.
And that's the thing, like with a market like that, you're also betting on whether or not people are going to buy followers or report the account. So what happens if the account gets reported and suspended, like before the market closes? Then the whole market's just thrown out of whack.
Yeah.
And how was your experience using Veil?
It wasn't bad. I think that. So I think, and I was talking to somebody recently, like the user interface of Veil is nice, but the concept of like betting on Augur to me is still fairly confusing. Like I had to read the blog post about, like, I'm not the dumbest guy in the room. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't know all that much about prediction markets. But there's kind of like two different concepts. There's the binary market, and then there is a market with kind of like basically two different price bands essentially, where the kind of the price and what you're actually betting on fluctuates. It's not a binary.
Or were these the Veil derivatives?
I don't even think they're derivatives. They're just like two different types that you can essentially bet on right now. Like in this case, it was, will Mayor Pete have 1 million followers, yes or no? And you can buy yes, or you could buy no, and depending upon who's on like each side of the market, it's more expensive to buy yes versus no, or no versus yes. And the other one, I think the other example is there is a market for Andrew Yang, and it's like, how many Twitter followers will Andrew Yang have? And then there's actually like an order book, and there's kind of two different views. There's like a simplified view, and then there's like an order book expert view as well. But just in comparison to like, if you were to bet on sports in general or something like that, it's like way more confusing than if I were to go on any type of like sports gambling website and just be like, I want to bet on the Jets -3 to win the first game of the season or something like that, and you just see your odds right off the top, and somebody takes the other side of that. So it was a little bit confusing, but the actual like interface is pretty decent.
And that's what I've been thinking about with like something like Augur. What's going to happen if like, so let's say Augur gets enough interest in, because what's Augur great at right now? It's these little like niche markets, like the egging, like the Twitter followers thing. But it's not good at the markets that have, the most interest in them. So like political, sports, that have easily like hugely broadcasted outcomes. Like,
like March Madness was one that I think somebody was complaining on in one Telegram group. Like there was no action.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, why would I use Augur for March Madness? Like there's no point when, I could easily do it on a sports betting site, and I can trust the Oracle because it's the damn organization that the information's coming from the organization that carried out the games, and there's enough information online that can confirm that belief. And my fear with like something like Augur is, let's say Augur ever does pick up traction in like these kinds of markets. What happens when, regulators notice and potentially loosen up restrictions on betting, and the centralized markets benefit from those loosening of restrictions, and then all the people who went to Augur to be in this kind of gray area of betting are like, oh, I could do it on the centralized service now, and it's a great experience. Let's move back. Does it then lose the value proposition that like kind of Augur has built up over time? Because I'm trying to still see, even with Augur as an example of like these decentralized tools, where's the case outside of, like traditional markets I could easily bet on with existing sites that do it great. Yeah. Like, I guess it's these hyper localized markets, and even like gray area markets, like black markets, like really bad crap, which I don't know how many people are even betting on. Whereas, even if the dream happens of political markets and sports markets going up, it might just lead the centralized services and regulators to be like, okay, let's loosen it a little bit. People just keep migrate all the way back to centralized services because they do it better.
Yeah. I think what's happening with Augur is interesting, and I feel like some people have been like frustrated at how like maybe slow the pickup is in comparison to what they were expecting. I think that's just generally speaking for a lot of the like quote unquote decentralized things in general. Yeah. Like there really hasn't been like incredibly fast pickup for
anything.
Almost anything decentralized outside of things like at the protocol level, like things that are building on top of a protocol or utilizing a protocol. Like they've definitely been like moving pretty slow out, maybe like with the exception of a MakerDAO.
The killer case is we can move this value back and forth, which is kind of what's slowly me becoming a heavier Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
Like in terms of how I think, it's like these products are interesting. They're fun to look at. They're fun to like think about how they could be used. And then it boils back to, okay, I could send you Ether, I could send you Bitcoin just as this, store of value that we're moving back and forth and settle. And then I'm like, okay, it's cool. That's where we're starting. But all these kind of other projects are just very wide in scope, very like, I'm like, all right, who's going to be using this? Where are the cases? So still want to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like where we're at right now too. Of like everybody keeps asking like, what's the next thing that's going to bring in like the bull run, or the next, not even taking the price out of it, like what's the next thing that's going to bring in mass adoption? What's going to bring in the next wave of people? And I don't think anybody has a damn idea. Like I really don't think anybody has a damn clue. And part of it is because I do think like there is some element of building like products that maybe like people don't need, or you're either incredibly early or whatever, or maybe just decentralization or like non-custodial aspects is not something that people either care about at all right now, or they just don't value that a lot. And even when we're looking at some of like things like lending on Ethereum has been one of the biggest things that has like taken off, and you're starting, like we've talked about Maker and like compound finance and things like that. But then if you look too, I mean, on the centralized aspect, I think it came out the other day, like Genesis Trading did like $500 million in lending in like Q1.
They're doing great. All these centralized services are killing them,
like
man. BlockFi too.
Did I don't know how much in Bitcoin and ETH lending, like an incredible amount of money. So that's a very clear use case. And then there's also like maybe not as much differentiation there between centralized and decentralized services. There might be some people that are using the non-custodial or the decentralized services because they have to, because they don't want to KYC, or they don't want to legitimize themselves with BlockFi or with Genesis or whatever it might be. But it's just interesting to watch all this stuff progress.
Yeah, and watching like the centralized services and decentralized services compete, and kind of who's offering the better experience right now, and what are the trade-offs. Like you just mentioned, like what's the using a Dharma versus a BlockFi, and like viewing that and watching it happen real time, which has been fascinating. In the product side, I'm curious to see more cases like Brave. Like I'm not a fan of BAD at all, but like, integrating, because you have millions of Brave users, like kind of just having this appendage that's the crypto side. And I know you have more experience with like Brave and BAD than I do, but like just seeing, where the levers being like pulled on having that decentralized quote unquote option in centralized services, kind of the mix up rather than the competing services on either side of the centralization scale.
Yeah, I use the Brave browser probably like 50% of the time. I like the Brave browser a lot. I think they've done a really good job, and they made it a lot better in the past like 6-8 months, something like that. And then I've been a verified publisher. I think my YouTube channel, my Twitch as well. So I've been a verified publisher. The one thing about Brave that's kind of, I guess, the choke point of decentralization is the actual payouts to creators. And I don't know what it's like for actual users, because I haven't done the registration for actually getting paid to watch ads, because that's what they just released, I think earlier last week, is the actual ability now they have advertising programs where users can sign up for that, and then they get paid. I believe they get paid basic attention token for their time to watch these these videos or these advertisements, whatever it might be. But for an actual like content creator, content partner, whatever it's called, you have to KYC and do all this stuff through Uphold, and then you actually determine what you want to get paid at via Uphold. So like I can get paid in USD, I can get paid in BAT if I want, I can get paid in BTC, I can get paid in like 40 different currencies through Uphold. But it's still kind of strange that I have to go through this like third party, and I get the kind of business components of that. And I'm curious, I should probably check that actually after we finish this up, is like what happens with the users, like what happens with them? Do they have to go through Uphold as well? Because if they do,
and
I'm not a huge fan. But
it was billed like as this decentralized thing, and then now there's a centralized choke point. So like what's the the point
Yeah.
of all of it. It was kind of like, yeah, you get paid and then they just write to your wallet. And it's like, wait, okay, now you got uphold, which is KYC AML. Like, fine, like, great. You know, you're operating as a business. You're trying to remain on the side of regulation, which is great. But like, what is it being billed at versus what is really happening? And then you got like the fringe cases like Gab, who are just like, let's just fork Brave and get rid of everything and build it ourselves in our own little silo in the basement.
Yeah, I've talked about that a little bit before, and I think like there were like kind of two sides of the coin where they like build. I feel like Gab kind of like build that as we're doing this because basic attention token BAT is a shitcoin and we will never support a shitcoin, and we just want to like get rid of it, and we're like badasses, we're going to get rid of a shitcoin and use this to our benefit. But on the other end of the spectrum, I think that like Brave was like taking the open source code that they had was probably the easiest way because they had gotten deplatformed from basically every other browser, where they're like putting this extension Dissenter that's basically adding a comment section to every website that's banned a comment section to allow Gab users to comment, which is, you know, interesting if that's, you know, that's kind of, it's not my cup of tea, but it's, you know, that's what they're building, and it might have, you know, a really big use case. The comment section is usually a wild place. So they're trying to do that, but like I think the Google Chrome store banned them, like the Firefox store banned them, so they couldn't build their extension. So they're basically building the Brave browser with the built-in extension, and then now they're integrating Bitcoin into it somehow. I don't exactly know how. Server. And you know, Bitcoiners are like, oh yeah, you know, rip out basic attention token, use Bitcoin, that's sick. But I kind of think like it's just using the Bitcoin aspect to like get the publicity and like get the goodwill.
Like they complained a lot. Like BTC Pay Server, I remember, was an option for them for a long time.
Yeah.
But they wanted like the theatrics of like, we've been deplatformed, no one will accept us. And then like everyone's just like for the last 3 months, like, look, BTC Pay Server, like do it yourself. Just do it. Like, no, what was me? And then it became like a whole drama story that just got people involved. So
deplatforming.
Oh my God.
I mean, outside of that, is there anything? I think we definitely covered quite a bit today in a round of shitcoins and hot takes and other stuff. Anything that, you know, maybe we didn't cover that you want to add into the mix?
I think IEOs are dead. I think it was lightning in a bottle. I think this is like the last thing that came to mind. I'm like, I think someone posted a chart today of like returns. I still have like the tinfoil hat theory of like, you know, with the BitTorrent ICO being the first IEO, they wanted to make sure it had enough market movements to make it look lucrative. And then a bunch of other IEOs happened that also looked good to begin with. They got people all hyped up, but now I think they're just like, everything's getting crushed now again. Like the hype cycle's over, they made their millions, and now it's just time to move on to the next shiny object. I mean, Binance in particular, I was just like, oh, so it's all about Binance stacks now, right? Let's just kind of sweep the IEOs under the rug right now.
I think I'm probably going to make a video tomorrow, and that chart, I think it was Alex Kruger, I believe.
Yeah, Alex Kruger, yeah.
So yeah, that chart that came out, and I think I'm literally just going to make a video tomorrow that's going to be called "Don't Buy IEOs." And specifically, like if you somehow have fast enough fingers to fill out a CAPTCHA in like less than 0.1 milliseconds, and you beat out all the click farms in wherever they are, and you actually get like an initial allocation of an IEO, sure, buy it, flip it the second it gets on an exchange, and, you know, walk away with your money. But for the love of God, do not buy an IEO after it hits an exchange, because every single chart looks exactly the same. It's just like BitTorrent had like a second level of a pump, but every other IEO that's come out after that, it's just been a slow death downhill. Yeah. It looks like the Zcash chart.
And oh my God, yeah, the Grin chart too. I'm curious though, like I know Veryblock. Then the thing was like they got people excited because they were at least like legitimate, and I say legitimate as in they were like actually building something. Yeah. Like not just kind of smoke and mirrors. Like they had it's hard for me to say anything about BitTorrent because of Tron, the whole Tron thing, but like even Seller. And I know Ocean Protocol was trying to do one with Bittrex. I'm not sure if they went through with it. I was Fetch.ai. Like I met those guys like, you know, a while ago, and just knowing they were recognizable names. And it's just, you know, it's gone totally off the rails with all the other exchanges doing it now. The one I think that kind of went against the trend, wasn't it like Veryblock on Bittrex that I think didn't do as well as the others?
I think Veryblock basically off the bat was almost in the negative or in the negative.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it ever really pumped. Like, everything on Binance is still up, I believe, from
Something.
like still up a multiple over what it actually IEO'd at. So if you bought in on the IEO, you made money in every single Binance one. I don't think it's the same for every other exchange.
Yeah.
The one thing that, and I know like you did, used to probably do a ton of work on this with like Token Foundry, but like the distribution model of this is like it's like as bad or worse than ICOs.
It's like a tiny percentage.
You are guaranteed. Well, number one, it's a tiny percentage of what these actually hold, or like the actual entire cap of it. But even that, like, it is such a tiny, or it's you know exactly that's going to hit an exchange. So 99% of these people are buying these tokens. 99.99% of these people are buying tokens with the sole intention of flipping them the second they become available on the exchange. So there is nobody actually using any of these for any type of intended purpose.
Absolutely.
And you see it the second they hit the chart.
Yeah, it's not because there's these tokens have like these amazing utility you could use on day one. It's just like, it's going to be listed. And that's what, if you look back at 2017, 2018, it was always like, when exchange, like, when is a project, when am I going to be able to trade these tokens? So the IEOs offered a situation where it was like just automatically going to be listed. I know Binance, even before they did BitTorrent, had the launch pad with both Bread and Gifto, and they both got listed. And it's like it turned when exchange into, okay, exchange is happening, got to get in. And it just became this like FOMO event of like, we just got to get in now because we know it's going to get listed on Binance. Because Binance was always the big pinnacle of like, oh, when Binance. It had its own like phrase.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today. If anybody is interested to follow Rocco on Twitter, if you don't do that already, I'll throw all his information in. But I mean, like I said, he's been on 3 times before, so if you haven't followed him yet, I don't know what you're doing. But outside of that, really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks again, Rocco.
Yeah, thanks for having me.